I'm starting out with a piece of craft paper and I'm going to sketch out my shape. It's almost like two hearts turned sideways and then connected together. So I start at the top like I'm making a regular heart, and then I curve each side outward to give it like a double heart shaped. And then I'm going to bring my lines straight down on both sides, kind of like not straight, but at an angle a little bit like this. And then once I'm happy with the shape, I'm going to cut it out and fold it in half so that way everything stays nice and symmetrical. Believe it or not, this is going to be a frog, so just bear with me because it comes out looking so cute. Next, I'm working on the frog feet. I'm only drawing out one frog foot here. Then I'll cut that out and use it as a template. I can trace it one way for one side and then I'll flip it over to trace the other so that way they match and mirror each other. I traced out my templates on this corrugated cardboard and just cutting it out using my X-Acto knife. And this is by Fiskars. It's a really nice set. I'll try and remember to link that down below. I'm going to paint everything with Waverly's chalk paint in the color Fern, but I'm keeping my brush pretty dry. I don't want this to be too heavy or overly wet. So I'm just going slowly building up the color. Then I'm layering the color celery to give it a little dimension. And after that, I'm bringing in some burnt umber around the edges and lightly going over the top just to add a bit of depth and age. These little hearts I got from my stash. I ordered these on Amazon. It's a huge pack of like all different sizes. And I'm painting these the color Red Cardinal by DIY. I'm going to remove about an inch off the bottom. And this is how our little frog is looking so far. And this thrifted sign I got at Goodwill, and I actually really like the base color, so I'm not doing too much to it. All I'm going to do is go over it with color Simply White and giving it a heavy distress. While that's drying, I printed out a pair of sunglasses and I used that as a template to trace onto that same corrugated cardboard, and I cut those out along with two little oval shapes, and I'm painting all of those the color black. And I'm using my favorite black chalk paint. I get it at the Dollar General. It's usually just one coat coverage and it dries so fast. It's my absolute favorite and it's still only $3, so you can't beat that price. Then I took these two little small wooden circles from my stash and I'm painting those the color white. Now I'm going to start assembling everything. I'm gluing my frog's body down onto my board at a slight angle using some hot glue. Just hold it there for a second because it wants to curl back up on me. Then I'm going to add my eyes and my sunglasses, and I'm bringing in a little bit of Distress ink in the color Worn Lipstick just to give him some soft cheeks, nothing too heavy, and just a little touch of color. Now I'm going to glue his feet and finish placing the eyes. And then I'll take a piece of rusty wire and use that as his little smile, which I think is just the cutest little detail. Oh goodness, I almost forgot his little pupils. Can't forget those, right? And then the little hearts are going to go on each end of his smile. And I'm adding some Tim Holtz Distress ink in the color Walnut Stain to his cheeks. And then I'm going to lightly dry brush some white chalk paint over his glasses and also some over his belly. And then I decided to add some to his feet as well. Next, I'm going to make a messy bow using some fabric and burlap, some Dollar Tree lace ribbon, and I'm also adding in some floral wire and taking a pencil and just curling it around the pencil to make some spirals. And then I took this tag and wrote out the word spring. I distressed it and then tied it right onto my bow. And I'm gluing that right up to the right hand corner. And I couldn't stop there, so I added some greenery. I added some lavender and some greenery and some yellow florals. And then I thought it would be really cute to include a little peat moss pot. So I cut one in half and glued it down and filled it with even more florals. I also had this little burlap rose that I had made a long time ago with a half pearl in the center, and I glued that right to the center of my bow and then set my cup on top of it to hold it in place until it dried. And that is it for this sweet little frog. There is a hanger on the back so I can hang him on a wall, but for photo purposes, I just leaned it against my plant and I think he came out so cute. All right, this video is part of a playlist. It's our first of the month challenge hosted by Brenda from Rustic and Lace and Gwen from At Home with Gigi. Be sure to check out these talented ladies, and our playlist will be full of inspiration. And the links will be in my description box. All right, on to our second project. I'm starting with these 6x6 wood squares. I'm pretty sure I picked these up at Walmart a long time ago. I've had them forever, and I'm going to be using a total of 5 of them. Actually, no, I used 7 pieces. And using my triangle ruler as a template to cut out 2 triangles. Now, I used my X-Acto knife because my sister was sleeping and I didn't want to wake her up, and what a pain when I could have just done this with my scroll saw. Now I'm going to take 8 total of these tumbling tower blocks and gluing them together using my Titebond Quick and Thick wood glue. I love this glue. It sets up so fast and a little goes a long way. So I'm going to start building a box, and I'm attaching my squares together using those stacked tumbling tower blocks and gluing them into each corner to connect everything. And then I'm going to clamp them together using my clamps, and I'm going to set those aside to dry. It only took about 30 minutes, and then for a little extra support, I'm adding some Dollar Tree wood blocks to the top of each corner using some hot glue. And let me tell you, this Gorilla Hot Glue is the bee's knees. It holds really, really well. And so I'm building a birdhouse, and what birdhouse doesn't have a hole, right? I'm using a 1-inch paddle drill bit to make my opening, but my drill died and it was totally done for several hours. So I ended up going in with my heat knife to finish it off. That didn't work the best, but it got the job done. Now I'm going to take those triangle pieces and glue them onto the front, which is obviously where I put the hole, and then also one on the back. And I also cut some craft sticks to use as little braces just to help hold everything in place. And then I'm running some more wood glue along the top of each triangle, and I'm going to set the remaining 2 squares on top to form my roof. And then I'm going to clamp everything down and let it sit for about 30 minutes until I know it's nice and secure. And then once it's dry, I remove my clamps and move in with my paint. I'm painting the exterior in the color Moss by Waverly, and I'm leaving the inside unpainted. I'm also painting this other square. I found this in my stash, and it's a little bit larger than the others, and that's going to work out perfectly. Then I'm going to take this Dollar Tree frame and using another one of those square wooden pieces as a guide, so that way everything lines up nicely. And I'm going to cut 4 of them, and I'm going to glue them into each corner and stain them with Waverly's Antique Wax. Now, I wasn't paying attention here and ended up staining the wrong side on, I think, 2 of them. And I didn't notice until after everything was already glued down. And honestly, I was a little discouraged. But for now, I kept going. And then I took these trim pieces and glued them to the top of my roof. And they needed a little added support, so I took some mini craft sticks to help hold them in place. Now I'm going to start gluing these pieces of bark onto the roof, and I feel like this really gives it that rustic woodland kind of texture, like something you'd find tucked away out in nature, and I love that. I ended up running out halfway through, and of course it was raining outside, so I took a step back and looked at it, and honestly, I just wasn't loving how it was coming together at all. Something fell off and I didn't know what to do, so I just decided to set it aside. And honestly, I wasn't going to go back to it. And this is where I have to give Yetta some credit. I was feeling totally discouraged about it, and it just so happened she messaged me and asked, "How's the birdhouse coming along?" And I told her. And she's like, you know, there's no way that it could be that bad. And I sent her a picture and she gave me some suggestions. So I went back to it and just kept going. And I absolutely love how it came out. But some days I don't know what I would do without her. She's the absolute best. And if you don't know her, definitely check her out. She's part of this playlist, Craft Along with Jay. And she is just so incredibly creative. So I went outside, got some more bark, and I had to let it dry. So I did some staining with my antique wax. And then off camera, I added all these dowels to the top. And it was quite time consuming. So I didn't bother film it because it was just, it's just so boring to watch. And then I stained that as well. And the front was still bugging me, so I cut out 3 more dowels to frame it out, stain those, And then I went back over my corner pieces again with more of that antique wax. At this point, my bark was dry, so I went back in and started gluing those pieces onto the top of the roof. I'm really loving these bark pieces. We had some trees cut down last year and they ran them through the chipper. So there's all these larger chunks left behind, and there's just so many interesting shapes here. You might have noticed the hole looks a little different. Off camera, I went in with my Dremel to widen it and smooth it out a little bit. Then I added some more distress ink, and I did wet distress it a little bit with a wet washcloth. Then I wanted to add some transfers to the front. It needed a little pop of color, and I just love these little pink flowers. They're just so pretty. Now I'm going to start adding this moss. I collected a whole bunch while I was outside getting my bark pieces. They're all different colors and textures. The bright green pieces were from my stash. I got those at Hobby Lobby. There's going to be some extra details you're going to see in the final photos, but I took this little piece of bark and added a little paint and wrote out the word nest. And guys, I think this is so pretty. I set it on top of a Dollar Tree candlestick, added those little white baby's breath and a little fence to the side. I can't wait to hear what you think of my little birdhouse. I am so glad that I kept going and I had the encouragement from a sweet friend. For my third project, I'm starting out with this embroidery hoop that I thrifted along with some wooden dowels, and I'm gonna cut 6 of these dowels so they can go all the way around in the shape of a wheel, and I glued those right to the hoop. This wood round from my stash, and I'm using a good amount of hot glue to secure that right to the center. Then I added that smaller circle right on the top of that, and once everything's in place, I'm going to paint it with the color Nimbus by Waverly. It's a really soft gray, and then once that dries, I'm going to dry brush the color Mineral by Waverly. And the fun part, I'm adding florals. I'm gluing some lavender, using some hot glue, and I did use a few zip ties just to secure everything. I want to make sure that my lavender doesn't go anywhere. Then I added some white baby's breath. Then I took this little, it looks like a mini pool noodle, cut it in half, and then wrapped that around and secured it with some zip ties. I did use some hot glue, but I just needed a little more structure here to add this Excelsior, these hydrangeas, these other purple flowers that Belinda sent me in my mystery box, and just glued those in there. I didn't want them to go anywhere. And then all of these layers, I'm going to make a really pretty bow. I got that floral ribbon on Etsy, and just make an awareness bow with all these beautiful layers and tying it off using some jute twine. I added a jute hanger to the top and added my bow to that. I didn't glue anything, and I think this came out absolutely beautiful. As always, if you like this video, be sure to like it and hype it if you can. I love to hear your comments down below, so don't forget to chat it up with me and turn on those notifications if you don't want to miss another video from me. Be sure to check out the playlist. There are so many talented creators sharing their projects, and you won't want to miss them. Thank you for spending time with me today. Until the next one, bye.